Hello, today I want to talk to you about Dana Coverstone's dream he had on August 17th, 2020, about, over 4 years ago, yeah? Which I think he thought was about the coming election that year, but it's actually the coming election this year. In the dream, he saw a calendar. It was bent, torn, and dirty. He saw these trees in the background that were leafless, a few trees, leaves had turned, dull gray sky, cloud cover, all this symbolizing coming trials and difficult times. On the calendar, he's had a dream about a November calendar too before, which I think they are linked. I'm trying to find the link on that, but he saw a finger appear and it circled November 3rd continuously, and it continued in a clockwise direction, then suddenly it changed to the counterclockwise. So this is the events in the dream that take place after. They start with events that take place after November 3rd election, this coming one, 2024, followed by events that take place before the election. So we're going to see in this dream, it actually tells us what's going to happen after the election first. Which I think is the interesting part of the dream, because at the end of the dream, the Jesus figure is telling him, you need to brace and prepare for what's about to come, and it's not about, all the hype about the election. It's about what's going to happen after the election. So images began to appear. He saw cities on fire, which is nothing new. Okay, so there's going to be rapid systematic change with cities on fire, which is nothing new after the election. Happens after every election, I suppose. When you get a new party in power and president. He saw headlines that read Trump victory was challenged everywhere. It was on digital marquees like in New York Times Square, a place like that. So it's going to be reported on social media before the new year. Times Square is a symbol of, New Year's Eve, so it's before the new year that Trump is completely everywhere, vindicated. His victory in the trial. And trial is a symbol of being challenged, and it's in New York. Once he's left, perhaps at the November trial that he has. Apparently he can't pardon himself for state, like, felon charges, but he's going to be vindicated. So it's not going to be probably a pardoning of himself. So there were protesters, and after that there were protesters in the street who were wearying asleep. So Christians are Protestant, and protesters are symbols of Protestant, because the Protestant movement came out of the protest. These are Christians out in public. They're in the streets. They're not speaking the truth or sharing the gospel. They're weary and not prayerful or watchful. They're asleep. And they appeared dirty and dingy, like they had not slept and showered in weeks. These are Christians with guilty consciences, which is the dirty, living defeated lives, which is dingy, who are not rested in the Lord, not slept, or spiritually cleansed or renewed for years and years, weeks, symbol by weeks. So it's kind of this theme of what Christians are doing, after the election is kind of highlighted. And then the next thing that happens, this bell rang, and suddenly these people come to life, like they woke up and they started salivating like a dog, like Pavlov's dog, with big buckets of saliva, and it seemed to stain their shirts. That's the situation. Since you say it's the salvation. So maybe that's a contrast. Christian salvation is contrast with maybe the Christians. These people are the Christians start watching. They woke up. Their personal investments bounce back, come to life, and an automatic response, which is symbol of Pavlov's dogs, for unjust gain, salivating. And the scripture for that is, he will spit out the riches he swallowed. And that's Job 20:15. Symbol for salivating, for unjust gain. They're never satisfied, which is a dog. And to a quickly shifting, the big buckets is a quickly shifting symbol. Quickly shifting stock market. The bell rang is the stock market. Obviously, that's symbolic of the stock market and bell ringing. And with shameful acts, which is stained shirt, he will not enjoy the profit from his trading. Job 20:18. And I saw people screaming and getting violent over the election results. To the point people were firing weapons just randomly into the air. So on the subject of their retirement future investment accounts performance, the election results. People use call auctions, which is a symbol of screaming, which screaming is a symbol of that, to increase liquidity or cash out, but are forced, they're getting violent, to try to protect their investments by symbol of firing weapons, that protect themselves by randomly changing to uncertain investments into the air and try to resolve a problem to fix the situation into the sky. Governments also will sometimes employ call auctions when they sell treasury notes, bills, and bonds, which is, I suppose, a symbol of us going further into debt, and the treasury man later on may be a symbol of that. People were angry and people were mad. I saw a person with a sign that said, "The obvious winner is not so obvious," like a placard, like, the world's about to end, God is coming, get rid of whatever the little signs, and said, "The obvious winner is not so obvious." He held his head in shame. So this is about the end of the age. The world's about to end. The advent of Christ. God is coming. Get rid of sin, now, and confess, which is the placard, whatever misleading and deception that's in your life. Because not everyone who says to me, "Lord, Lord," will enter the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 7:21-23. You know that in a race all the runners run, but only one wins the prize, don't you? You must run in such a way that you may be victorious. That's 1 Corinthians. The obvious winner was not so obvious. That's what those two verses are saying. And at the end, there's false believers will be exposed. This guy's holding his head in shame. So that's the theme of the Christians running in here with the economy. What's going on with Christians? And you see it at the end of the dream too. But the crowd was in a frenzy of hatred. YouTube translated as friends of hatred. And sometimes I'll use those YouTube mistranslations. Separation from the world, the crowd. If you're separated from the world, you're going to be friend to hatred because people are going to hate you. They were hitting each other, with their signs and their banners and their wrath. So Christians are judging each other, hitting, misleading, and maybe judging, other people too. I don't know if it's just Christians. Misleading and deceptions, signs, through self-exaltation, banners, and easily irritated wrath. So this common theme, and this one is the guy, the Jesus figure at the end. He's saying, you guys got to get ready, and it's not just about the economy. It's about your faith. So, and I saw more cities with pillars of smoke over them, like the wild firestorms in California right now. So there's going to be more systematic, destructive political changes, firestorms, with government benefits, pillars of support. These are dangerous, and it increases, like California did with its 2020 unemployment benefits when around the time you had this dream in 2020. I saw crumbled and burned out buildings in Washington, D.C., not monuments, but businesses and commercial real estate. So the buildings are established businesses and commercial real estate capital, which in Washington, D.C., deteriorates and reaches a credit limit. It's crumbled and burned out. But cryptocurrency, monuments is a symbol of tokens. Tokens are used for cryptocurrency, are not affected. Is not affected. Headlines declare that rebuilding will take time and trust would take even longer, and government could not do it in a timely fashion. So new construction is going to be stalled by bank. I'm not quite sure about this one, but by bank, mortgage lending halt and delay in governmental support or the bailout, symbolized by fashion. And that's when I saw a Treasury official who's in the Treasury Department right now. It's like Treasury, it's just a symbol of hidden manipulation. Probably just increasing the debt to stimulate the economy. I don't know, manipulating interest rates, these kinds of things. The following events take place before the election. So this part of the dream, which is the second half of the dream, is actually what happens before the election, because you have the circle of the counterclockwise circling of the November 3rd at the beginning of the dream. So he saw a Conestoga wagon and Kamala Harris and two mules and Joe Biden, and it was comical, like the 1860s, 1800s. So the Conestoga wagon is a name that came from some Indians. It's originally an Indian name. American Indian name, that is no longer around. So it's a symbol of minorities in a bandwagon, and that's powerful, dynamite, and since the Civil War era. And there were some loose ones. So she's trying to use minority support, basically, to blow up Trump's position. But she's going to find that's not going to work. And there was Harris being to whip the mules. The mules are, a combination of donkey and horse. So it's just donkeys, the Democratic Party, and horses, a symbol of power. So it's the power of the party. So the Democratic Party strength, mules, donkey, horse. This is where I saw Hillary Clinton was standing behind President Trump. Trump was on his knees. So Hillary Clinton is a symbol of a woman presidential hopeful. And that's basically today that is Kamala Harris. She's wearing a Wilma Flintstone dress. There were patches. The collar wasn't there, and the strings were just hanging all around. Wasn't finished. Guess she wasn't ready for prime time. It was very ugly. So her presidential debate, prime time skills. Flintstone is a symbol of something that you use to cause fires. Trying to cause fires. What she's saying. She's not really ready. She's ill-favored after the debate. It was very ugly. So it didn't look like she was ill-favored after the debate. But the strings are just hanging all over the place. In the debate, it was pointed out that she's, she keeps flipping her positions on things, and I think the strings is that she's just getting pulled in all these different directions. And the collar is a symbol of, I think, ideals and values, which she doesn't have any. I guess it's missing because she's being pulled all over the place, and that's maybe the ugly part that we realized after the election is that, she doesn't stand for anything, I guess. And that's why she has no collar. But she's like Flintstone, she's trying to cause fires with what she's saying. This next part, I'm not sure about the guide ring that Clinton was wearing. A skeleton key is something that kind of sets Donald Trump free. But the gladius knife is Trump is waiting for a impartation. He's on his knees from the government, U.S. Senate, whatever, prosecution. So he talked about this in the election. Is the political parties are weaponizing local DAs or whatever in New York, against him. And so this is what they're trying to use, and they're holding a knife to his throat, and the cutting words of the left side of his throat. And then the skeleton key is dangling in front of his face, and there's also a Nazi symbol. And he mentions Nazi a couple times, that which is basically a symbol of the progressive movement that started in Nazi Germany. The wagon starts to pick up speed, and they're headed towards Hillary, and Hillary's face is giddy. She's happy, obviously, that, she thinks the minority vote is going to pull her through. But there's the large animal trap, and like a bear trap, and the bear is a symbol of financial dealings. Could also be a symbol of California. So maybe she's not going to get the support she expects out of California. The minority support. And suddenly Trump grabs a key and pulls it down like and grabs it with his left hand, and he punches her. So the key is something that she's holding. Maybe it's the prosecution, symbol of prosecution, since Kamala's a prosecutor by DA or something. She stepped back. The president runs off. She tries to pick up the knife. She can't. She steps into the trap. So Kamala is which is symbolized with Clinton, is ensnared in a situation, the trap, over financial dealings, the bear, or it could be California. California support, the symbol of the bear. So he's running to his beast, and this is the interesting part too. Is he talks about 3 gunshots, and the the Secret Service, which when I first heard this dream, he had already been shot at once, but then it was just in the last few days he's been shot at twice, the second time. And this is all supposed to happen before the election, so this is prophesying a third assassination attempt, and that's the heavy part of this. And then the rebel Moses kind of echo back the American Civil War thing. That it's basically what's going on in our country today. They're trying to make it out to be a racial war and tribalism and all that. That's going to tear us apart. And the sunglasses of the Secret Service, I haven't figured that out yet. She probably the last part is trying to, not last part, she tried to pull her weight, but she couldn't, and then the huge explosion when the wagon hit her. So she basically gets hit by the thing that she thought was going to save her. So the minority vote bandwagon, the Conestoga Indian, blows up Kamala's presidential hopes, which is Clinton. So she doesn't end up getting that vote. And Biden was lying face down in the middle of the street, wheel tracks on the back of him, and there was a vulture sitting on his head. So Kamala ran over him, took over his presidential election campaign, made it hers. That's a wheel tracks over him. And Trump supplants him, which is a vulture, Biden as president sitting on his head. And then Harris is crying in disbelief, tears that looked like the size of quarters, the size of quarts instead of quarters. So maybe that has to do with, cry quarter means to beg for mercy, but maybe it has something to do with the fact that, she was expecting this court case to, help her in her victory. There was a huge hole in the ground, obviously from that exploding, but and that's the government debt deficit spending, which we see already. And buildings were collapsed. That's the Democratic congressional power being overturned. And then in the church, there's no middle ground. I haven't quite figured that part out yet. But there were fire on the altars and churches around the nation, and fire moved on the heads of the people. So the dream starts with a rapid change in the American system right after the election, the fire in the city, and follows through with rapid change in worship, which is altars, and places of worship, churches around, and refining people who have a foundation, head, in prayer. Above the heads of many people in the church, this is probably the dividing line. There's half the people are actually, praying and being transformed. I saw an actual question mark symbol above their heads. So many are preoccupied with market fundamentals, what's happening earlier in the dream. That's their head, and volatility is the question mark. So this part, the church part, is actually after these the election then take place, sometime after the election. They appeared confused by what they're saying in the world. So if we're not praying, we'd be perplexed by listening to the world. So he heard a voice say, "Those who refuse to get ready will be wanting in the end. So brace yourself and tell others that I have warned them to brace themselves, for they are about to see even more shocking things." So we need to prepare for the stock and housing market collapse. And commercial, because it's depicting a commercial property market crash, not housing, which could be in conjunction with that. But the commercial property market crash is the thing that's been highlighted a lot in dreams. So it's going to be the last one was a housing market crash, but it's going to be a commercial property market crash. And those are the shocking things: the stock market and the property market. And you'll be found wanting in the end. These shocking events are highlighted at the beginning of the dream. The events taking place before the election aren't what we need to brace ourselves for. That's it. He also told another dream after this Conestoga dream, which I'm working on. I'll share in another video. Thanks for listening.